All right, welcome. This is Agri Talk right here on KTN Farmers TV. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi, and guess what? Today we'll be talking about rabies, and this is World Rabies Day. And we have Dr. Simon Jenga, who is a project veterinary officer at KENDAT, and is going to be explaining to us how you as a farmer or even one who keeps animals or specifically dogs can know how your animal may be affected by this. And we're also going to be learning on how this rabies is affecting human beings. Welcome.
Asante sana.
All right, so Dr. Simon, you are from KENDAT.
Yes.
Briefly explain to us what KENDAT does.
KENDAT stands for Kenya Network for Dissemination of Agricultural Technologies. Basically, what we are pioneers in is animal welfare. I think most people know us with the phrase Heshimu Punda. So KENDAT is one of the partners, and the Brook Network as one of the partners. We work around Mount Kenya in 7 counties. Meru, Kirinyaga, Tharaka, Embu, Nyandarua, Nairobi, Kiambu, and Laikipia. Basically, we do work to do with donkey welfare, as we are famously known for. But we have also gone to other areas of agriculture in terms of dispensing new technologies. And also we support animal health practitioners outside there in terms of mentorship and supporting their work, be they in private and also in government. Yes, thank you.
All right, so let's get right into the topic of today, where we'll be talking about rabies. Now, briefly just explain to us what rabies really is.
Rabies is a viral disease caused by a virus known as Lyssa virus. Anatomically, it is classified as a Rhabdoviridae. And in its anatomy shape, it's a bullet shaped for those who have done a bit of biology and science. Rabies virus is affects warm-blooded animals, especially the mammals that we know. And here in Africa, or Kenya rather, we have the dogs, the cats, the cows, the camels, and we also have the donkeys that we work with. So it's good to note that being a warm-blooded targeting disease, the human is a major culprit of this virus. So diseases that move from animals to humans are known as zoonotic diseases. Now, rabies is one of the widely known zoonotic disease around, and it is known especially in up country where there are a lot of dogs, and now within the urban areas, now that people are embracing the culture of keeping pets, it's becoming common, especially the transmission from dogs and cats to humans. Yes.
And now you've spoken about dogs. Let's look at this one as a specific animal that is affected by rabies, and just try to look at the signs that someone can know my animal is affected by rabies. What are some of the signs?
Now, rabies has an array of in terms of exhibiting itself in an animal, and rabies occurs in 2 types. We have the furious form, and we have the paralytic form. So furious form is usually represented as an aggressive, exhibits itself aggressively, while the paralytic is actually even given the name dumb form. An animal just goes quiescent. So you won't find the animal very active. Now, in the furious form, mostly you will find an animal. Say your pet, you had you know the normal behavior of your pet, say a dog. It starts becoming hyperactive. It's good for me to note this at the transmission stage. Usually an animal will get rabies virus from another animal, mostly through bites. And what you'll find is that saliva is the biggest mode of transmission, since the virus replicates itself within the salivary glands of animals or even a human being. Now, the first, after getting bitten by another animal, so there will be a history that your animal had interacted with other animals, and now, afterwards, your pet starts exhibiting excitement, hyperactiveness signs. Maybe your pet was just only active when it sees you, wags its tail, and then as normal as you're used to pets. But in this case, your animal starts getting hyperactive abnormally. So normally, the time that it takes from the time an animal or a person gets bitten to the duration, to the time now when you start exhibiting signs, it is dependent on which part of the body it's bitten. Normally, the rabies virus transports itself from the site of bite to the brain through nerves. So if an animal was bitten in the extremities, it will take longer, or even a human being if you are bitten on the leg. But if you are bitten maybe on the neck or maybe on the head, it will take less time, because the nerves from maybe the cervical region to the brain is very short. Now, after hyperactiveness and all these signs, the immediate other signs that follow is foaming or hypersalivation. It's good to note that through research and these publications, you'll note that once signs of rabies appear, management it's not manageable. Unfortunately for the humans, then you have to take them through tender loving care as you try to manage their way down the road. But for pets, normally we usually advocate for seclusion, that is isolation and quarantine, so that the pet does not now become a biological or a safety public health hazard, start biting other animals and also the owner. As you realize in statistics, the dog bites in human, half of them occur in children below the age of 15, and 95% are actually from their own pets, not from stray animals. That is 95%. So you can see the importance of this disease when it comes to personal pet management and general welfare. So after salivation and maybe some foaming, that's now when, for the case of the furious foam, now this dog can now start attacking people. It has come of that, it is aggressive, chasing people around. If it's a cow, it's helter-skelter. Now, for the paralytic form, this pet just goes dumb. Your dog was hyperactive, it was running all around, happy to see you, but suddenly your pet has gone silent. So normally most of these pets actually proceed with these signs in the dumb form up to when they succumb. It's good to note that one of the most notable features in rabies is actually hydrophobia. An animal with which is already exhibiting signs of rabies, we usually develop hydrophobia. It cannot take water, and it's actually a struggle even for those that attempt to take water. So most practitioners outside there in the field will try maybe to give water to a cow or maybe a donkey to try and see, can it maybe take some water? And most of these animals actually keep away aggressively from anything to do with water. So normally in our procedure, public health procedures, we advocate for isolation, and these animals actually succumb maybe within a week, as long as the definitive signs of rabies are overt. Now, it is usually a bit tricky for a person who is not very new to pets, and it's actually good that I'm here to publicize that it's good to know what is rabies and how it appears, and maybe like as a pet owner or an animal owner, the key things you should know that are maybe indicative that your animal has rabies.
Yes, and even on that point of making the audience and the masses aware of how they need to take care of this situation, let us just look at the safety measures when it comes to dogs at home with the children. What are some of the things that you would advise people to do in order to make sure that maybe if a child is bitten by a dog or a cat, what do they need to do in order to make sure that, because most of the time you find a child might be bitten and then the parents don't do anything. So what would you advise pet owners to do?
First and foremost, we recommend that you either purchase or acquire a pet from a registered dog breeder or an owner if he's not actually doing breeding. That is, the animal has actual records in terms of ownership, health records, as you'll find out that rabies is an aggressive viral disease. So we actually advocate for annual vaccination for pets. That you either purchase or acquire a pet from a registered dog breeder or an owner if he's not actually doing breeding. That is, the animal has actual records in terms of ownership, health records, as you'll find out that rabies is an aggressive viral disease. So we actually advocate for annual vaccination for pets, be they cats, dogs or donkeys. Vaccination is usually annually. Now, with you acquiring the records, you can actually prove yourself. It's a cautionary measure, just in case you just get a pet from the roadside and you don't know the source. The second part is responsible pet ownership. Now, we usually find owners, not only in rural areas, but actually in towns. A person wakes up in the morning, lets out the pet to go just root around and maybe even fend for itself. We usually advocate for housing in a situation where maybe there's no space for the pets to move around. So just acquire a house for the pets so that maybe you can lock them up and then maybe get some few times to play around. The third we usually advise, get professional advice from a registered animal health practitioner. We have veterinarians outside there, be they in government or private, but you can always get crucial information on disease control. There are many other diseases that affect our pets, but as pertains to rabies, it's actually one of the epidemiological duties that government officers do outside there in terms of monitoring and surveillance. If there is a case of rabies, maybe say in an area like Eastlands of Nairobi or maybe around this area, the sub-county veterinary officer will actually want to know, might there be other several cases, or maybe we are dealing with an isolated case. And then there are usually ring vaccinations what you'll notice is that ring vaccination actually, which are
All right,
aimed
now,
at
from the pets,
vaccinating,
let's now
say,
look
around
at
70% of the population,
the human
actually
who has
aid
been bitten
by a bigger factor in terms of
either an animal,
preventing the
of course, an
spread
animal
of the disease.
that has
So
rabies.
always
What is the care
reach out
mechanism?
to your
What
nearest
are
animal
some
health
of the,
practitioner,
you've already
a
been
registered
bitten,
one for that
you
matter,
didn't even have the
to get
vaccination,
the relevant
you've just been
information.
bitten. So
And
what do you think
lastly, I would say,
is the
always
safety measure
pass
when
around
it comes
this
to
animal welfare
the
organization
whole
to run a thing
process?
or
You've
two
been bitten to
about
the
general
whole
pet
process until now
management.
when you
Yes.
maybe get
Right,
well
now,
from the bite.
From the pets,
Yes.
let's now look at
Normally, when you are
the
bitten
human
by
who has been
either
bitten
by any animal, especially our
either
pets
an
and these
animal,
domestic
of course,
animals.
an
Yes.
animal that has
The
rabies.
most
What is
important
the care
factor to
mechanism?
consider is
What
that assume
some
that
of the,
animal
you've already been
has
bitten,
rabies.
you didn't even
Never
have the
assume that
vaccination.
I know my
You've just
animal,
been bitten.
I know
So
my
what
pet,
do you think
and maybe just
is
before I
the
go
safety
into
Yes.
measure
Mm.
when it comes to
maybe a medical
the whole
practitioner
process?
would
You've been
have
bitten to the
more
pro,
fit
the
to
whole
Mm.
process
go
until
into the
now
depth
when
of,
you
human
maybe
medicine.
get well
Mm.
from the bite.
Yes.
An animal that has been
Normally,
bitten,
when
maybe
you are
through
bitten
dog
by
bites or the others,
either
it's usually
by
given
any animal,
exposure.
especially our pets and these domestic animals,
Yes.
the most important factor to consider is that assume that animal has rabies. Never assume that I know my animal, I know my pet, and maybe just before I go into humans, though maybe a medical practitioner would have been more fit to go into the depth of human medicine. An animal that has been bitten, maybe through dog fights or the
Yes.
others, it is usually given a post-exposure vaccine. That is to give immunity before the virus actually gains replication within the animals over the immune system. Now, when a human being is bitten by an animal, we usually advocate for immediate washing of the bite site. If you hit your finger, I think most of us get bitten on our fingers and our legs. So we advocate for around 15 minutes washing with running water and soap. And for those who have maybe povidone iodine, it's much better. The goal here is to reduce as much as the viral count at the biting site before it starts getting into the nerves and getting the transmission starts through the myelin sheaths to the brain. Now, after washing the bite site with copious amount of water and soap, and also if you have povidone iodine, as I said, you can also apply. Rush to the nearest medical facility. Go for post-exposure vaccination. Now, maybe it's not in my jurisdiction to speak about human medicine, but in short, I can say that getting health care or attention in the nearest medical facility is the best thing after primarily managing it through washing.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. Thank you for that. Very insightful, because that for someone who doesn't have the nearest hospital around, they can do the safety measures at home even. All right. So let's move on and look at various animals. Is the effect the same in as it is in dogs, as it is in cats, as it is in donkeys? What are some of the differences, or what are some of the similarities that we have in all over the animal kingdom that we have?
Now, in the animal kingdom, I had mentioned about the paralytic form,
Yes.
and the furious form. The presentation in the paralytic form is generally similar. In the in the damp form is also somehow similarly across species.
Okay.
So if it's your cow, for example, mostly here in Africa, or rather in Kenya, we keep our animals outside in the shed. If it's your cow, for example, or a camel or a donkey, you'll find that there is behavior difference. Now, maybe if maybe your animal was used to getting hyper excited when it sees you. We have this culture of giving names to animals. That animal is called so and so, and maybe you'll find even 10 cows have different names. When you call them, they respond. Now, in the dumb form, now that's where now you find an animal doesn't even respond. When maybe you try to use the normal communication, say either sign language or using feeds or fodder as we are used to. So you'll just find the animal is non-responsive. The opposite when you come to the furious form is also the same case. So you'll find an animal, normally maybe it was just docile, and now in this case it's hyperactive, running from one corner of the shed to the other. If it's a camel, camel becomes furious. A camel can actually grab a person and throw him across the fence.
Wow.
They're usually strong. So hyperactiveness is actually across the board. Dumb form is across the board. So it depends on which presentation of rabies we are dealing with, either dumb or the furious. Yes.
And can we say that any animal that is either kept in the house as a pet, or the ones running around the various streets that we have, apartments, can we say those animals are prone to have rabies? Because someone can say, I take my animals for shots every year. They are cleaned, they just stay in the house. So what that animal, if it bites someone compared to the animal on the streets, what is the difference? Do they have the same effect?
Maybe we should be talking about risk, the risk factor. An animal that is loitering outside, and maybe even to the bushes, has a higher risk of interacting with wild animals. And they said it's a disease affecting warm-blooded animals. So apart from the domestic animals that we know, outside there in the field we have the hyenas, we have the leopards, we have raccoons, we have ferrets outside there. So and of course there are these bats that we know. They are also spreaders of rabies, especially those pets, animals that move into caves. Now, an animal which is housed, and that's why I had mentioned that one of the best way to counter spread of rabies is actually to house animals and put them in an enclosure. You minimize the risk of spreading this disease, because there will be minimal interaction with animals outside there. Otherwise, if animals are left loitering outside there, you will end up with a higher risk and a bigger spread, maybe within a given area. Yes. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for sharing that with us. Now we're going to go for a short break in a few, and we'll come back with Dr. Simon Jenga. I hope you have learnt a lot from what he's explaining, and if you have a pet, make sure you do whatever he has been advising us to do. All right. Now we go for a short break. We'll be right back with more. All right, welcome back. This is Agri Talk. Thank you for staying with us. We are talking about rabies. Today is World Rabies Day, and we have Dr. Simon Njenga here, who is a project veterinary officer at Kendat, and he's just explaining to us about this day. And let us just get right into it and just get to know what this day is really, and why is it important to celebrate World Rabies Day?
World Rabies Day is a big day for any animal health practitioner outside there, and of course our clients who are animals and their owners. Now, World Rabies Day was took effect in 2006. The first time when we had the celebration, and it was brought into place by the Global Alliance against rabies control, so that globally both human doctors, vet doctors, all assistants within both specialties can take part in a campaign of having 0 deaths from rabies by the year 2030. Now, it's good to mark this, that the first case that was actually diagnosed in Kenya was in 1912. So we have come a long way as a country, that right now we actually have an annual World Rabies Day. We have now the infrastructure to investigate, survey, and also diagnose rabies, and it assists in these epidemiological studies in monitoring, so that we are able to see maybe areas that are still rampant with rabies cases and the highest, so that we can implement control strategies like vaccination, and also there are campaigns to do with the organizations that do animal welfare activities, like community work, like what we do in Kendat, and also the other international NGOs and partners that come into place to assist the government in spay and neuter campaigns. Yes.
All right. And so still on the World Rabies Day and some of the achievements that have been made since the inception of this. Now, when we look at the findings of this rabies infection in the country, from where you sit, what do you think is going to be the trajectory moving forward if we look at the years that have passed and where we are right now? We're looking at the numbers. Are we slowly eradicating the infection rate, or are we still at a place where we were maybe say 2 years ago?
Maybe I forgot maybe to mention that World Rabies Day is usually celebrated on the 28th of September every year. Yes, so it's good to note that date on your calendar. Always remember that date. Always, when you see that date, just remember to check on your pet's records. Check, is it vaccinated, is it up to date, and then you can do the necessary.
Yes.
So that's just a side. Now, when it comes to our progress as a country, I think it's good to appreciate every stage of our country that it has taken the Ministry of Livestock and also the allied partners in this journey of control against rabies. Normally, prior to 2012, we used to have in the former constitution, we used to have the Director of Veterinary Services in charge of these vaccinations and also surveillance studies in different parts of the country, where the DVOs then would give this data back to the DVS office in Kabete. That aside is that the veterinary investigation laboratories used to come in handy, and they were actually the centers of doing investigation across the country. And now that we have a devolved system of governance, the directors of counties in the vet services and agriculture are usually the ones who are in charge of these programs and strategies across the country. Now, every journey maybe has its teething problem, especially the new constitution, because getting these structures in place maybe took a bit of time, and maybe resources, getting proper allocation, especially in livestock. So maybe there may be challenges here and there in terms of funding, in terms of the campaigns and vaccinations to facilitate these programs. But I think partners usually come on board to help the government in this work. So just for an instance, early this year in February, we had a robust campaign in Nairobi County under the guidance of the County Director of Veterinary Services. And now we managed to vaccinate the whole of Eastlands, all the way from the border with Kiambu County up to the other side of Kajiado. So the impact is that you get less cases of rabies. More owners are enlightened about animal welfare. And it's good to note that right now we are doing more campaigns on awareness and publicity, so people actually know more about animals and pets rather than more than say 10 or 5 years ago. So that's a mileage, I would say it's a mileage gained. But as usual, maybe there are hiccups here and there in terms of fund allocation. And now that the election season is over, the new government, we hope it's going to take this into the next step. Yes.
All right, and also still continuing on this, when we look at awareness, you've spoken about county governments. Now, when you look at awareness, let's move away from Nairobi. Let's look at the remote areas in Kenya. Do you think there needs to be more foot put in making sure that animal owners in those areas also have these services available to them? Because you might find someone in the rural area saying, all right, vaccination of, why should I vaccinate my dog and I just leave it to walk around during the day, even at night? So when it comes to awareness, creating awareness all over the country, what do you think needs to be done?
Number one, I think we are already doing this as a union of different partners. And I would actually highlight the work done by KVA, the Kenya Veterinary Association, together with other partners in this work, including to assist the government in their work. They are usually robust campaigns, especially on spay and neuter. As the world is now opening up more, information is spreading faster. There is always information on the media. There are always posters. And in this year, Kenya Veterinary Association will actually hold its World Rabies Day in Kitui County. So it's not just about Nairobi. We are moving to the other counties. Last year, we had, despite the COVID activity, we had this activity in Malindi. So it's remarkable to note that organization like TNR Trust, which is a pioneer in spay and neuter, actually moves around the country in their campaigns to try and control, to do an animal welfare-based animal population control, where you spay or neuter, or rather the most commonly used term, castrate. These dogs and cats within the rural areas and also the urban areas, to try and do an animal welfare-based program which is aimed at countering an uncontrolled spread of population. Now, it's a more than one-man effort where we assist the government in achieving its mandate. And actually, I am very optimistic about the future because more partners are coming in, and I hope we shall achieve much more maybe this year and the years to come. Yes.
And also, I'm still going to be sticking with the awareness issue. And let us look at a young person who is in primary school, because I remember when I was in primary school, when you see a dog you definitely know I need to stone it or just chase it away. So what do you think needs to be done to the younger generation to know that this is an animal that I need to take care of because it's going to help me in one way or the other?
Actually, it is already being done outside there. As Kendat, we have what we usually call DCCs. These are donkey care clubs. Now, I think what you can, most of the people outside there, what they can relate with in our generation are what we used to call 4K clubs. Now, unfortunately, maybe the 4K clubs reach somewhere and the motivation or the drive died down. But we have tried to revive this culture of information, conveying information down to the younger generation. So what we do with these donkey care clubs at the primary level is first of all support the activities that are usually education based. So right now we have the new curriculum, and there are a lot of these activities these kids do: dramas, poems, songs. So Kendat and the other partners under Brook, we usually support these young kids in their clubs to maybe develop poem-based, animal welfare-based poems, songs, themes, stanzas, choruses. I mean, based on the 5 animal welfare domains that we usually have, so that a younger grade 1 or a grade 2 kid knows that an animal is not supposed to be abused. An animal is supposed to be provided with water or food.
Yes.
An animal is supposed to be housed properly. An animal, when it's sick, should find an animal health practitioner to provide animal health services. And also, an animal should be led to express itself naturally of art. So if I was to take you to one of the schools we have around, one of the schools that have a DCC, you'll actually be amazed by the level of knowledge they have about caring animals. And they have other projects that support their clubs so that they are self-sustainable. Yes.
And now, let's also look at, you had mentioned about vaccination. You had also mentioned about it being yearly. Do you find resistance from some people who say maybe there might be misconceptions around the vaccinations? Remember, when vaccines come, there are usually some resistance, even if it's going to help. So speak about this so that someone who is out there who maybe thinks the vaccination against the vaccinations on the animal is going to bring some maybe huge effect on the animal. Speak about this.
I think I'm very happy, especially with the younger generation. You'll find that most of us, the younger generation, had a chance to go to school. So we know what is vaccination, or maybe we have a clue what is a vaccine. But maybe the older generation had a slow pace of adopting a vaccination. Actually, there are a lot of myths and fads, especially in what we do about donkeys and also other animals. That an animal is not supposed to be treated. When an animal is treated, maybe say like the donkey, it dies. So the younger generation has a different perspective as it comes to animal welfare, and in particular vaccination. So we find it very optimistic when we find a pet owner who is 17-year-old or even 15-year-old pushing his or her own parents that it's Saturday, I'm not in school, I want to take my pets to the vet doctor. And actually, most of the parents learn on that day that actually animals are supposed to be vaccinated in this and this and this. So we have a lot of maybe vet clinics around Nairobi. We have a lot of vet practitioners outside there in the field that go door to door. it's actually encouraging that there's a paradigm shift in terms of awareness, knowledge, and acceptance in adopting vaccination for different animals. And I hope maybe in the next several years we are going to reach a level that it's like the basic minimum knowledge of any pet owner. And I guess the government has come in this through licensing, that you should have a permit, permit if you own a pet, and it helps in trying to manage some of these issues, especially rabies. Yes.
And now, moving closer to the end, the incoming government, what do you think needs to be done in order for them to contribute to this to this project fully? Because of course you've mentioned government has been helping, you've been working together with the government as Kendat. So what do you think needs to be done more in order for this project to move forward successfully?
It's great news that now we have a new government in place, and I hope the new cabinet secretary who is going to take over the livestock and agricultural docket will actually lobby for more funding for, number one, staffing within the ministry, and this should actually trickle down to the counties. There are some counties which have a deficiency of field staffs, infrastructure, be it infrastructure in terms of buildings or vehicles as a means of movement. As you realize, 90% of our work is actually outside there in the field.
Yes.
What you just do in the office is just collecting reports and maybe for those who work in the labs. But actually the biggest part of our work is outside there. And there's also, we expect the general goodwill in terms of support from the government, so that partners who are interested in supporting some of these government structures and in its jurisdiction can actually go a mile, 5 miles faster than maybe it would take normally. So we expect a lot of support from the government and partners. And also for us animal health practitioners, it's motivation for us and morale. Let's continue practicing our oath in protecting animals, especially in welfare, as any animal practitioners has taken that oath in terms of pioneering and championing the aspect of animal health there, healthcare and the general care. Yes.
All right, and finally, now on World Rabies Day, what should someone pick going forward as we close?
I like that question. Our theme for this year is One Health, Zero Deaths. If you forget everything about what you have said about rabies, just remember about the theme. One Health, Zero Deaths. At this age, healthcare is more than a vet doctor.
Yes.
It's more than a human doctor. Now we have adopted the One Health aspect, where we are talking of the animal health, human health, and our environment put in one basket to achieve the general well-being of our ecologies. So we are trying to achieve zero deaths by the year 2030 through One Health. So if you are a human doctor outside there, if you are a vet doctor outside there, all of us have their respective areas within which they work in different environments. Let us always work at safeguarding our lives and also that of our animals. And in the end, we are going to achieve zero deaths by 2030. Just remember that, zero deaths by 2030. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much for joining us today on Agri Talk. There you have it. You've heard from Dr. Simon Njenga, who is a project veterinary officer at Kendat, and he has really extensively explained about rabies and how you, as a pet owner, can make sure, not even a pet owner alone, anyone can make sure that you take care of an animal that is near, closer, or even that you live with in your area. All right, that's it from myself and my guest today. That is it. Agri Talk next time, same place. Remember, KTN Farmers TV. My name is Kelvin Nyakundi.